Hey guys, Wrecko here, and welcome to another episode of Wrecko Reviews. Since its recent return to Netflix, I decided now would be a good time to review Avatar the Last Airbender. This in no way has anything to do with the fact that I need to release new content on YouTube or risk losing the ability to monetize off my videos. So let's get started as I review Book 1 of Avatar the Last Airbender. From the start of the story, we're introduced to Katara and Sokka, siblings from the Southern Water Tribe. During a hunting trip, they discover a boy frozen in ice. Katara sets him free, and the boy turns out to be Aang, the last airbender, and much to everyone's surprise, the long-lost Avatar. The release of Aang from the ice sets off a beam of light that calls the attention of Zuko, who has been searching for the Avatar for years. Zuko eventually captures the Avatar, but Aang manages to escape with the help of Katara and Sokka. Zuko, however, is not one to give up easily, and continues trying to capture the Avatar throughout the season. After this encounter, it's decided that Aang needs to master the 4 forms of bending and defeat the evil Fire Lord Ozai to bring peace to the world. Katara and Sokka join Aang on this quest, all the while trying to avoid being captured by Zuko and the Fire Nation. And that's pretty much the main story. I like this setup because early on we know what the goal is, and it leads the audience on this trip around this unique world. So the story itself is pretty solid. Alright, so let's break this down into smaller parts. I want to talk about animation, world building, storytelling, and character development. Avatar is well known for its bending and the animation that brings it to life. Sometimes this animation can be a bit choppy, but for the most part it's spot on. Animating water is no easy feat, and yet every time we see it, it's done beautifully. Many people consider Avatar to be an anime based on its character designs, and while it does have some Japanese influences, it's actually not anime at all. It was made by Nickelodeon, an American company, and has American showrunners. The credit for animation for Book 1 goes to South Korean studios JM Animation and DR Movie, and they did an epic job bringing all of the bending scenes to life. I mean, just look at some of this stuff. The world of Avatar has similarities to our own, but loads of differences. For example, most of the creatures in the show are fusions of 2 animals. Appa, Aang's animal buddy, is a cross between a bison and a manatee. Momo is a mix of both bat and lemur, and the list goes on. I don't even know what this thing is. That's kinda scary. Jeez. Also, the world of Avatar is divided into 4 nations, and during the show's first season, we catch glimpses of what each nation is like. I'm talking about how each nation has its own culture and different wardrobes. The Water Tribe is based off of the Inuits, complete with fur clothing. The Fire Nation is based on the Japanese, and their uniforms look similar to samurais. Earth Nation's clothing is based on Chinese cultural attire, and the Air Nation is based on Tibetan culture, complete with monk-like wardrobes. It's also interesting to note the architecture that's put into these places. The show oftentimes cuts to wide shots of the nations as Team Avatar enters them to show just how vast they are and how different each one looks. Even the northern and southern water tribes look completely different from each other. In the south, they live in igloos, while the north is a massive Venice-looking city with waterways to travel. What this all basically translates to is mad research. Another thing I wanted to bring up was how bending was not only used for battle, but also had practical uses. In the city of Omashu, we see the guards use their bending to open and close gates to enter the city. We also see that they use bending to make various deliveries and send mail to each other. In the Northern Water Tribe, we're shown the people's innovation to steer gondolas with their water bending and see that they even have classes to heal people using it. Even the Air Nation applies these same methods in their temples, requiring the use of air bending to open certain doors. These little touches really bring this world to life. The creators of this show wanted you to know and feel you were in a different land, and I think they did a phenomenal job. Another aspect of the show to consider is the spirit world. As the Avatar is the balance between both the physical and spirit world, there's a lot of lore and strange things we run into. One of the cool things about the Avatar is he can enter the Avatar state. It gets pretty ridiculous at times, and whenever he does it, you know people are going to get hurt. The feats performed while he's in this state are insane, and they're always enjoyable to watch. Another cool aspect of being the Avatar is the ability to communicate with his past lives. This leads to a bunch of interesting moments as we see Aang get help and advice from his previous life as Avatar Roku. The show goes in all types of directions as the lore and the spirits become more important to the story. In one of the more creepy scenes in the show, Aang needs to go to the spirit world to learn the location of the moon and ocean spirits from a face-stealing spirit named Ko. The scene is the stuff of nightmares as Aang has to get the information from Ko without showing any emotions or he will steal Aang's face. This kind of world building is memorable and definitely sets Avatar apart from other animated shows. Alright, now hear me out on this one, because for storytelling, this is a bit of a doozy. Avatar the Last Airbender was a show that was originally designed for kids, for a kids network. But we all very well know that was a lie. The story of Avatar tackles some really dicey themes, more suited for adults, and it does so brilliantly. We get to see the after effects of the genocide of the Air Nation when Aang goes to visit his old air temple. We witness grief and loss from the hardships of war. We see a tyrannical government in the Fire Nation, and we watch as it imprisons people not because they committed any crimes, but because of their culture and the ability to bend differently than them. We watch the aftermath of these crimes manifest themselves in the character of Jet. Jet's parents were killed by the Fire Nation, and immediately he turns to vengeance. Watching him beat up an innocent old man shows you the level of hatred and prejudice he has in his heart, and Jet's plan to drown an entire Fire Nation village makes him an extremist. But these are the results of war. These themes and messages are great because they're still relevant today. Mind you, I thought this was supposed to be a kid's show. That being said, perhaps the most hated episode among fans is The Great Divide. Now, there's nothing wrong with it, except it doesn't do much to move the story forward. It's an episode that can be removed from the season, and it wouldn't have any effect at all. There are a few episodes kinda like this, but The Great Divide plays absolutely no serious role in the story. Also, the way this episode ends always bothered me. These two tribes have been feuding for 100 years over an incident, and Aang tells them what really happened, and the two tribes come out of the episode in peace. The only problem is, Aang invented the entire story. He lied to bring them together. But hey, I guess if it stopped a 100-year feud, then it might not have been too bad. Now on the opposite end of this, I want to talk about what I thought was one of the best examples of storytelling in Book 1, in the episode, The Storm. In this episode, we learn more about the backgrounds of Aang and Zuko through flashbacks. It's a wonderfully written episode. Alright, now the first thing I want to talk about is timing. This episode delivers some crucial information that will make you think differently about these two main characters, but the timing of it is everything. The episode comes a bit past the half point of the season. This is great, because at this point the audience has already developed their own ideas as to what these characters are all about. And then, this episode, appropriately called The Storm, completely obliterates those ideas. You ever watch a show or a movie that gives away too much information too soon? It sucks, and it removes the mystery and excitement from the story. Giving the audience time to understand the characters on their own and come up with theories as to how they became the way they are is great. In Avatar, the big early questions were, how did Aang end up frozen in the ocean? And how did Zuko get that scar on his face? Both questions are answered in this episode, and both are tragic stories. After learning this, the audience will feel more sympathy to both characters, especially Zuko. But this would have sucked if this was revealed in an earlier episode. Timing is everything. The second thing I want to talk about is the film concept show don't tell. It is what it sounds like. If you are any type of visual storyteller, your goal is to show things as they happen versus explaining them. This is why flashbacks work so well in storytelling. When we get Aang and Zuko's backstories, they are told around fires, much like how legends were told back in the day. With Aang, we see when he discovers he's going to be taken away from his mentor, and we see that he runs away. And it's this chain of events that leads him to enter the Avatar state to freeze himself and Appa to avoid dying in the storm. With Zuko, it's the same thing, except way more terrifying. Zuko speaks out during a war meeting and dishonors his father. This leads him to having to fight his dad. Zuko refuses to fight him, and his dad burns his face. But it's the way it's shown that makes it special. The slow motion used on the clothing to reveal that Zuko needs to fight his dad adds to the drama. It's also eerie because we never see his dad's face. Zuko begs for mercy, but none is given, and instead, Zuko is scarred for life. While we don't see the hit, we see the audience's reaction, and that's more than enough to deliver the info. If that wasn't enough, Zuko becomes banished until he is able to capture the believed to be deceased Avatar. Again, a kid's show, right? These two stories would have had way less impact if we didn't have the visual information to process them. Imagine the Zuko story without the flashback. So, your nephew sucks.
Nah, you gotta understand. He spoke out against a terrible war plan, and his dad challenged him to a fight.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Zuko didn't want to fight, and the Fire Lord torched his face. Then, he exiled Zuko until he captured the Avatar.
Holy sh! See what I mean? Show Don't Tell has been used since the creation of time-based visual media and will be around forever. And the writers of Avatar certainly made great use of it during this episode. Alright, so next we're going to talk about character development. One of the many great things about Avatar is the main cast has story arcs. They change and grow throughout their adventures, and this is great because it's what usually happens to us in real life. Alright, look man, Sokka was a straight up misogynist at the beginning of Book 1.
I knew I should have left you home. Leave it to a girl to screw things up.
Stop bugging her, Airhead. You need to give girls space when they do their sewing. Girls are better at fixing pants than guys, and guys are better at hunting and fighting and stuff like that. It's just the natural order of things. Who are you? Where are the men who ambushed us? Wait a second, there's no way a bunch of girls took us down. It's all right. I mean, normally I'd hold a grudge, but seeing as you guys are a bunch of girls, I'll make an exception.
He's like this mostly because he was the only male in his village, and he didn't know any better. He also believed he was a great warrior, again, because he was the only one in his village.
True, but don't feel bad. After all, I'm the best warrior in my village.
But that completely changes after he runs into Suki on Kyoshi Island. Not only did she beat him, but his defeat shattered his previous beliefs. Through Suki, Sokka saw that women could be powerful warriors. He asked her for forgiveness and to be trained by her. I mean, the guy even went into full makeup. There's a humbling throughout this experience, and it makes him a better person overall.
I'm sorry.
For what?
I treated you like a girl when I should have treated you like a warrior.
I am a warrior. But I'm a girl, too.
In the beginning of Book 1, we see that Katara barely knows how to waterbend, mostly because she's the only bender in her village, so there's no one really there to teach her. While traveling the world with Aang, she wants to find a teacher to help her get better at it. She becomes jealous of Aang when he's able to pick up waterbending faster than she can. This becomes a bit of a fixation to the point where she steals a waterbending scroll from pirates. After many adventures, her bending gets better with practice, and she finally meets Master Pakku at the Northern Water Tribe, but he refuses to train her because she's a girl. Katara challenges Pakku to a fight, and even though Pakku is impressed, he refuses to train her, until he discovers Katara is the child of his old love. It's Katara's perseverance and dedication that leads her to basically becoming a waterbending master by the end of Book 1.
Katara, you've advanced more quickly than any student I've ever trained. You have proven that with fierce determination, passion, and hard work, you can accomplish anything.
What about Aang? He still needs to learn waterbending.
Well, then he better get used to calling you Master Katara.
At the beginning of Avatar, Aang is just a 12-year-old kid who only thinks about having fun, and it's understandable given his age. He often tries to skip out on his Avatar training or doing anything serious, but it's Katara that keeps him in check. It isn't until Aang sees the destruction of the Southern Air Temple and Katara reminds him of his role as the Avatar that he is truly able to get more serious in his training and put his guilt behind him. It's because of this that he eventually becomes better at understanding the Avatar state, and by the end of Book 1, we see what is perhaps the grandest display of his Avatar powers as he completely obliterates the Fire Nation invasion. Like, straight up, like, look at this. These guys got it right. Surrender, because you're all about to die. It's a crazy scene, but Aang was only able to get to this point because he grew as a person and as a bender. Alright, now this one is kind of tough. At the beginning of Book 1, Zuko is obsessed with capturing the Avatar. This doesn't change at all by the end of the season either. In fact, Zuko went as far as to free Aang from Admiral Zhao in disguise as the Blue Spirit to ensure that he was the one to capture Aang instead. This risky behavior is seen again when he captures the Avatar at the Northern Water Tribe and almost gets them both frozen to death. His obsession is reckless, yet understandable, and the thing we do learn about Zuko through all of this is that he's not a quitter, and he will find a way to reach his goals. One of the highlights for the show for me is whenever Zuko and Aang fight. I mean, Zuko basically becomes a human punching bag throughout most of their fights. But man is this guy persistent. Thankfully for him, Uncle Iroh, another fantastic character in the series, is usually there to guide him. Iroh is almost the polar opposite of Zuko, but this of course comes with age and experience. I feel like Iroh is basically Zuko's conscience, and while Zuko tends not to listen most of the time, the words are sinking in. Slowly. The one thing I will say by the end of Book 1 is Zuko is slowly starting to realize that the Fire Nation is nothing but a bunch of jerks. Now, we all know that Fire Lord Ozai is the main villain of the entire story, but the big bad in Book 1 is Admiral Zhao. Everything you need to know about Zhao can be summed up in the first fight he has with Zuko. He's a competent firebender, but after he loses to Zuko, he decides to attack while Zuko's back is turned. Fortunately, Iroh intervenes, and I think he words it best.
So this is how the great Commander Zhao acts in defeat? Disgraceful.
The rest of the season sees Zhao trying to capture the Avatar. The funny thing is, Zhao is eventually successful. Aang is captured, but he later escapes with help from Zuko disguised as the Blue Spirit. Zhao's tunnel vision for his goals and lack of temper also tend to be a weakness for him. This is apparent when Aang tricks Zhao into destroying his own ships. Later on, Zhao suspects Zuko to be the Blue Spirit and sends pirates to blow him up in a ship. Let me reword that. A grown man hires assassins to blow up a kid in a ship. Then he asks Uncle Iroh to help him take over the Northern Water Tribe. This guy's a scumbag. But hey, children's show, right? Right? Anyways, Zhao discovers that by killing the Moon Spirit, he will destroy the Water Tribe. The only problem is, it would also throw off the balance of everything else in the world. Despite all warnings, Zhao is determined to reach his goal, to go down in the history books as the man responsible for conquering the Northern Water Tribe.
The Fire Nation will for generations tell stories about the great Zhao who darkened the moon. They will call me Zhao the Conqueror, Zhao the Moon Slayer, Zhao the Invincible!
He kills the spirit, and before junk really hits the fan, he makes a run for it. During his escape, he runs into Zuko, and they have another fight. Team Avatar restores the moon, and the spirit comes looking for Zhao. That junk scoops him up. And even though Zuko tries to save him, Zhao's pride refuses to accept the help, and he's dragged into the ocean. Overall, I think Zhao represents the Fire Nation elite. He has tunnel vision when it comes to goals, and like most villains, he's a glorified bully. Nothing too memorable, but just enough for what Book 1 needs him to be. Also, Admiral Zhao's character is the one that has the most change from the beginning of Book 1 to the ending of Book 1. Because in the beginning of Book 1, he's alive, and by the end of Book 1, he's dead. Alright, so straight up, Book 1 of the Avatar is a phenomenal adventure. There are some minor parts that bothered me, like when some of the characters were being childish, or some of the jokes, but this is the part of the show where the writers actually do get away with it being a kid's show. In conclusion, Avatar Book 1 is a very solid first season to an animated series, armed with great storytelling, fun characters, fantastic world building, and animation. I give Avatar the Last Airbender Book 1 an A. It introduced us to a new and exciting world with tons of animated action, and it can only get better with Book 2. So, what did you think about The Last Airbender's first season? Or about this review? Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and click on that bell to get more notifications in the future. Also, be sure to check out some of our other reviews. Thanks for watching, and catch you later.